Welcome back, listeners, to Sandman Stories Presents, a folklore podcast where I read you to sleep or until the next story. I'm your host, Dustin. Today we are back in the book of Bengal folklore written down by Behari. In this story, we see a mouse trade its way up, but never be satisfied. It's got echoes of the fisherman's wife. Okay, let's begin. The origin of opium. Once upon a time, there lived a rishi on the banks of the holy Ganga, who spent his days and nights in the performance of religious rites and in meditation upon God. From sunrise to sunset, he sat on the riverbank, engaged in devotion, and at night he took shelter in a hut of palm leaves, which his own hand had raised in a bush hard by. There were no men and women for miles around. In the hut, however, there was a mouse, which used to live upon the crumbs of the rishi's supper. As it was not in the nature of the sage to hurt any living thing, our mouse never ran away from him, but, on the contrary, went to him, touched his feet, and played with him. The rishi, partly in kindness to the little brute, and partly to have someone to talk to at times, gave the mouse the power of speech. One night the mouse, standing on its hind legs and joining together its forelegs reverently, said to the rishi,
"Holy sage, you have been so kind as to give me the power to speak like men. If it does not displease your reverence, I have one more boon to ask."
"What is it?" said the rishi. "What is it, little mousie? Say what you want." The mouse answered,
"When your reverence goes in the day to the riverside for devotion, a cat comes to the hut to catch me, and had it not been for the fear of your reverence, the cat would have eaten me up long ago, and I fear it will eat me some day. My prayer is that I may be changed into a cat, that I might prove a match for my foe."
The rishi became propitious to the mouse, and threw some holy water on its body, and it was at once changed into a cat. Some nights after, the rishi asked his pet, "Well, little puss, how do you like your present life?" "Not much, your reverence," answered the cat. "Why not?" demanded the sage. "Are you not strong enough to hold your own against all the cats in the world?" "Yes," rejoined the cat, "your reverence has made me a strong cat, able to cope with all the cats in the world. But I do not now fear cats. I have a new foe. Whenever your reverence goes to the riverside, a pack of dogs comes to the hut, and sets up such a loud barking that I am frightened out of my life. If your reverence will not be displeased with me, I beg you to change me into a dog." The rishi said, "Be turned into a dog," and the cat forthwith became a dog. Some days passed, when one night the dog thus said to the rishi, "I cannot thank your reverence enough for the kindness to me. I was but a poor mouse, and you not only gave me speech, but turned me into a cat. And again, you were kind enough to change me into a dog. As a dog, however, I suffer a great deal of trouble. I do not get enough food. My only food is the leftovers of your supper, but that is not sufficient to fill the maw of such a large beast as you have made me. Oh, how I envy those apes who jump around from tree to tree and eat all sorts of delicious fruits. If your reverence will not get angry with me, I pray that I may be changed into an ape." The kind-hearted sage readily granted his pet's wish, and the dog became an ape. Our ape was at first wild with joy. He leaped from one tree to another, and sucked every luscious fruit he could find. But his joy was short-lived. Summer came on with its drought. As a monkey, he found it hard to drink the water out of a river or of a pool. He saw wild boars splashing in the water all day long. He envied their lot and exclaimed, "Oh, how happy all the boars are! All day their bodies are cooled and refreshed by the water. I wish I was a boar." Accordingly at night he recounted to the rishi the troubles of the life of an ape, and the pleasures of that of a boar, and begged him to change him into a boar. The sage, whose kindness knew no bounds, complied with his pet's request, and turned him into a wild boar. For 2 whole days our boar kept his body soaking wet, and on the 3rd day, as he was splashing about in his favorite element, whom should he see but the king of the country riding on a richly caparisoned elephant. The king was out hunting, and it was only by a lucky chance that our boar escaped being bagged. He dwelt in his own mind on the dangers of attending life as a wild boar, and envied the life of the stately elephant, who was so fortunate as to carry about the king of the country on his back. He longed to be an elephant, and at night he besought the rishi to make him one. Our elephant was roaming around in the wilderness when he saw the king out hunting. The elephant went towards the king's suite with the view of being caught. The king, seeing the elephant at a distance, admired it on the account of its beauty, and gave orders that it should be caught and tamed. Our elephant was easily caught and taken into the royal stables, where it was soon tamed. It so happened that the queen expressed her wish to bathe in the waters of the holy Ganga. The king, who wished to accompany his royal consort, ordered that the newly caught elephant should be brought to him. The king and queen mounted on his back. One would suppose that the elephant had now got his wishes, as the king had mounted on his back. But no, there was a fly in the ointment. The elephant, who looked upon himself as a lordly beast, could not stand the idea that a woman, though a queen, should ride on his back. He thought himself degraded. He jumped up so violently that both the king and queen fell to the ground. The king carefully picked up the queen, took her in his arms, and asked her whether she had been much hurt, wiped off the dust from her clothes with his handkerchief, and tenderly kissed her 100 times. Our elephant, after witnessing the king's caresses, scampered off to the woods as fast as his legs could carry him. As he ran, he thought within himself thus: "After all, I see that a queen is the happiest of all creatures. Of what infinite regard is she the object?" The king lifted her up, took her in his arms, made many tender inquiries, wiped the dust from her clothes with his own royal hands, and kissed her 100 times. Oh, the happiness of being a queen! I must tell the rishi to make me a queen. So saying, the elephant, after traversing the woods, went at sunset to the rishi's hut, and fell prostrate on the ground at the feet of the holy sage. The rishi said, "Well, what's the news? Why have you left the king's service?" "What shall I say to your reverence? You have been very kind to me. You have granted every wish of mine. I have one more boon to ask, and it will be the last. By becoming an elephant, I have got only my bulk increased, but not my happiness. I see that of all the creatures, a queen is the happiest in the world. Do, Holy Father, make me a queen." The rishi replied, "Silly child, how can I make you a queen? Where can I get a kingdom for you? And a royal husband to boot? All I can do is change you into an exquisitely beautiful girl, possessed of charms to captivate the heart of the prince, if ever the gods grant you an interview with some great prince." Our elephant agreed to the change, and in a moment the sagacious beast was transformed into a beautiful young lady, to whom the holy sage gave the name of Postomani, or the poppy seed lady. Postomani lived in the rishi's hut, and spent her time tending the flowers and watering the plants. One day, as she was sitting at the door of the hut during the rishi's absence, she saw a man dressed in very rich garb coming towards the cottage. She stood up and asked the stranger who he was, and what he had come there for. The stranger answered that he had come a-hunting through those parts, that he had been chasing in vain a deer, that he felt thirsty, and that he came to the hut of the hermit for refreshment. Postomani said, "Stranger, look upon this cot as your own house. I'll do everything I can to make you comfortable. I am only sorry that we are too poor to suitably entertain a man of your rank. For, if I mistake not, you are the king of this country." The king smiled. Postomani then brought out a water pot, and made as if she would wash the feet of a royal guest with her own hands, when the king said, "Holy maid, do not touch my feet, for I am only a kshatriya, and you are the daughter of a holy sage." Postomani: "No, sir, I am not the daughter of the rishi, neither am I the Brahmani girl. So there can be no harm in touching your feet. Besides, you are my guest, and I am bound to wash your feet." "Forgive my impertinence. What caste do you belong to?" "I have heard from the sage that my parents were kshatriyas." "May I ask you whether your father was a king? For your uncommon beauty and your stately demeanor show that you were born a princess." Postomani, without answering the question, went inside the hut, brought out a tray of the most delicious fruits, and set it before the king. The king, however, would not touch the fruits till the maid had answered his questions. When pressed hard, Postomani gave the following answer. The holy sage said that my father was a king. Having been overcome in battle, he along with my mother fled into the woods. My poor father was eaten up by a tiger, and my mother at that time was brought to my bed, and she closed her eyes as I opened mine. Strange to say, there was a beehive on the tree at the foot of which I lay. Drops of honey fell into my mouth and kept alive the spark of life, till the kind Rishi found me and brought me into this hut. This is the simple story of the wretched girl who now stands before the king. Do not call yourself wretched. You are the loveliest and most beautiful of women. You would adorn the palace of the mightiest sovereign. The upshot was that the king made love to the girl, and they were joined in marriage by the Rishi. Postomani was treated as the favorite queen, and the former queen was in disgrace. Postomani's happiness, however, was short-lived. One day she was standing by a well, she became giddy and fell into the water and died. The Rishi then appeared before the king and said, O king, grieve not over what was past. What is fixed by fate must come to pass. The queen, who had just been drowned, was not of royal blood. She was born a mouse. I then changed her successively, according to her own wish, into a cat, a dog, an ape, a boar, an elephant, and a beautiful girl. Now that she is gone, do you again take into favor your former queen. As for my reputed daughter, through the favor of the gods, I'll make her name immortal. Let her body remain in the well. Out of her flesh and bones will grow a tree, which shall be called after her, Posto, that is, the poppy tree. From this tree will be obtained a drug called opium, which will be celebrated as a powerful medicine through all the ages, and will always be either swallowed or smoked, as a wonderful narcotic to the end of time. The opium swallower or smoker will have one quality of each of the animals to which Postomani was transformed. He will be mischievous like a mouse, fond of milk like a cat, quarrelsome like a dog, filthy like an ape, savage like a boar, and high-tempered like a queen. Thus my story endeth. The Nadia thorn withereth, etc. The end. Wow, that was not how I expected the story to end. The sudden drowning at the end was pretty awful, but I guess it helped the story along. I do like how they treat opium as a medicine, which is what it was used for a long time and might still be. I like the echoes of The Fisherman's Wife, where the unhappy lot keeps trading up until it catches up with them, and I look forward to many more stories from this book. And the podcast shout-out this week is to a favorite of mine, the Endless Knot Podcast. Run by a couple of very nerdy professors, the Endless Knot goes through and finds connections in etymologies and in the classics. Avon and Mark are really nice folks and have supported this podcast from the beginning. And so if you like their show as much as I do, go and give them a rating, a like, and a review. And the listener shout-out is to Kohima in Nagaland, India. Formerly known as Kohira, this city is home to 100,000 people, around the same as my hometown. It is the site of the Battle of Kohima, where the Allied forces were able to repel the Japanese army, who were on their way to controlling the South and East Asia. The city is in the far east of Asia, between Bangladesh and Myanmar. It would be nice someday to visit, even if it is just to get some fresh tea and visit the Kohima War Cemetery, located on a former tennis court. I found a phrase book for the Agami Naga, and I was able to get something kind of close to my sign-out phrase. And so to my one listener in Kohima I say, Naja fe kidupyo chi baga, and api kevegba. What have you been doing all day? And my foot is asleep. Thank you, and good night.